Hello, everyone, and welcome to our channel. Today, we have an interesting story called The Gold Rush, Then and Now. Then, as in back then, during the 1800s, there was a gold rush in the United States, as well as now, which we'll talk about some modern day gold rushes and what they kind of look like compared to the gold rush back in the 1800s. So, what we'll do is a quick summary of the story. Then we'll go through the story for about 10 minutes and then review the story, kind of looking at some of the phrases and expressions that stood out in the story. So, we'll go ahead and get started. Today, we have an interesting story about a gold rush that occurred during 1848 in the United States. We'll also see how people reacted when they heard anyone could find gold. There's also modern day gold rushes, which people chase in different ways, which we will get into later on. So now, let's imagine you hear a secret that there is gold hidden in a river. All you have to do is go and find it. Would you leave everything behind to search for treasure? Would you take such a risk? Today, we'll talk about one of the biggest treasure hunts in the history of the United States called the Gold Rush, then and now. And make sure you watch to the end for the story review. So let's begin. It was a cold morning in January 1848. James Marshall was working at a sawmill near the American River in California. He had been hired to build the mill, but that day something unusual caught his eye. While looking into a river, he saw a small shiny flake in the water. At first, he thought it was fool's gold, which is just a useless metal that looks like gold. But after taking a closer look, he realized it was real gold. Just to be sure, he asked some nearby workers for a hammer so he could test it. He hit the gold with a hammer. If the gold broke into pieces, it was most likely fool's gold. However, once he struck it, the metal proved to be soft and just flattened out, which is what gold does because it is a softer metal than fool's gold. He wanted to be sure that it was real gold, so he and some other men tested it by boiling it in lye soap, which is how they tested it back then, and then determined it was in fact gold. In the end, the gold he found was later confirmed to be 23 karat or 96% pure gold. The news spread quickly about the find. But at first, people really didn't believe it and thought it was just a rumor. How could gold just be lying in rivers in California? I don't believe it, people said. Soon, others started looking. And then, as more people found more gold, the answer became clear. Yes, there is gold here. These people became known as gold miners. The news continued to spread throughout the surrounding territory, then throughout the country, and then shortly throughout the entire world. By late 1848, the news had reached the East Coast of the United States. Newspapers printed headlines saying, "Gold discovered in California." And then the craziness began. Tens of thousands of people packed their bags and rushed to California. These people were called 49ers because it was early 1849. And this is when many people dropped what they were doing and left for California to find gold. Most came to California from other states within the United States, but many people also came from other countries such as South America, China, and even Europe. They left their homes, jobs, and even their families, all for the dream of striking it rich by finding gold. But the journey was not easy. People from other countries traveled by ship, taking a dangerous months long journey around South America just to reach America. Others crossed the wild western lands of America by horse and wagon. The journey was very difficult because the land was not settled or controlled by the government. This gave way to outlaws and disputes with native Indians, which made the journey especially difficult for the 49ers. Many travelers died from disease, accidents, or starvation before they even got to California. And when they finally arrived in California, life was not what they expected it to be. Imagine arriving in California after months of travel. You're tired, but glad that you made it. You expect to find gold everywhere, just waiting to be picked up. However, when you get there, you see something else. Thousands of other miners, all looking for the same thing. The lucky ones found gold quickly. They easily picked up gold nuggets from riverbeds, sometimes worth thousands of dollars. But most people worked all day, sifting through mud and water, hoping to find just a few flakes of gold. And life in the mining camps was rough. There were no real homes, just tents and wooden shacks. Living conditions were very difficult. Food was expensive. The price of eggs, for example, could be as high as $3 per egg. That's about $100 today. There were no police in the city, so fights and crime were very common. If you found gold, you had to protect it because there were also many outlaws looking to steal the miners' gold. And worst of all, after a few years, gold became harder to find because most of the gold had already been found. Unfortunately, many people who made the trip to get rich found that most of the miners did not get rich at all. Many of them left California with nothing, having spent all their money on supplies, food, and travel. But some people got very rich, not from mining, but from selling things to the miners. There was a man named Levi Strauss who made a lot of money selling denim pants, which later became known as blue jeans. Another man, Sam Brannan, became one of the richest men in California, but not by mining gold. Rather, he sold shovels and tools to the miners. By 1855, the easy gold was gone and the gold rush was over. In the end, many people did stay in California because they couldn't afford to travel back home and lived in California for the rest of their lives. One big change that did occur was that California had turned from a quiet region of the United States into one of the biggest states in America. So, what about gold rushes in modern times? In the 1800s, people rushed to California to mine gold. But today, a new type of gold rush is happening: digital gold. Bitcoin is probably the most well known cryptocurrency, which started as a small idea in 2009. But by 2017, its value skyrocketed. Some people made millions of dollars overnight. However, some people lost money as well because Bitcoin was very volatile, meaning the price swings high and low without warning. Just like the original gold rush, these people saw an opportunity. Some invested early and got rich, others joined too late and lost money. A lesson to be learned is that timing and knowledge can contribute to success. Today, there is also a technology region in California called Silicon Valley. Many technology companies like Google, Facebook, and Tesla didn't exist 30 years ago, but their founders took risks, just like gold miners. Some of these companies struck gold with the technologies and the products they developed. Technology startup companies can be like modern gold mines. If you create the right app, software, or invention, you can strike it rich. Even being a regular employee in a startup company may share in the success of a company. Take Microsoft, for instance. There are some estimates that they created possibly 3 billionaires and 12,000 millionaires who were employed before the company started selling stock. Sometimes it pays to be in the right company. But just like mining, many startups also fail before they find success, which affects everyone, including the owners and investors who might lose money and the employees who might lose their jobs. Another modern gold rush could be real estate. In the 1800s, land in California was cheap until the gold rush happened and thousands of people moved into the region. The same thing happens today. People buy land in growing cities, hoping its value will increase as the city grows. In the United States, there are many cities and regions growing very quickly. This usually occurs when businesses relocate to a city that might have low taxes. In order to find good jobs, people are willing to move to those areas because businesses are paying more, especially if those cities or areas have a good quality of life, meaning that prices are affordable and there is very low crime. But what also occurs is that when people move in, it creates a higher demand for housing. If you own housing or real estate in those areas, you could make a lot of money by selling when prices are high. Just like the early miners who found the most gold, the early buyers of real estate can also make the most money because they purchased early. Okay, so the underlying message or central idea, otherwise known as the theme of the story, was something known as a boom bust cycle, which is where when things boom, it means there's a lot of great opportunities for people. The economy is doing really well. There's lots of jobs. People are making money. Then you have a bust, which means things kind of take a downturn and there's less opportunities that shrink over time. Over here, we can see kind of a graph kind of displaying this. The boom is when there's a lot of opportunities, then it kind of peaks up here, and then it drops back down in terms of a bust, and then the cycle repeats itself. And the same would be true whether it's a gold mining opportunity where a lot of people looked for gold early on and then the gold ran out. The same thing with a company. They could have a lot of great products, and then all of a sudden their competition takes over and things don't turn out so well for the company over time. The same with Bitcoin or real estate, uh, those kind of uh, those kind of opportunities. And you can also think about it from an economic standpoint, which is the relative financial health of a country. During the good times, there's lots of jobs, people are making lots of money, but then things go back down, and maybe we go into a recession, or even worse, a depression, where things aren't so good. So next, an interesting word in the story was mine. Mine. Mine is actually known as a homonym, which is a word that can have multiple meanings. So, for instance, in the story, when they talked about mine, they were talking about digging in the earth to take out a valuable resource, such as gold, diamonds, or maybe even coal. So, mine it can be an activity when you're mining for something. They dug a hole to mine for gold. They mined for gold. So that would be like an activity. Mine can also be a place. The mine over there has a deep hole. So maybe you're giving directions to someone to where the mine is located. The mine is over there and has a very deep hole. Mine can also mean something that belongs to someone. So it could be possessive in terms of this pen is mine, or that car is mine. So it would indicate basically that the speaker, that the object belongs to the speaker because you're saying that's mine. And then miners would be people who work in a mine. Okay, so one of the things that we saw in the story was something called a nickname, which is a name given instead of the real name belonging to a person, place, or a thing. And that nickname was 49ers. So people who went to California to search for gold in 1849 were known as 49ers. And we get 49ers from the year 1849, which is when they dropped everything to go out to California. So they just took the last two numbers of the year and called them 49ers. Now, the word miners could refer to miners back in 1849 or to today. The nickname, however, 49ers, only refers to miners in 1849 and not today. So today, miners today would just be called miners. You wouldn't call them 49ers. It just wouldn't translate. It wouldn't be the right thing to say. So we would call miners today miners, not 49ers. And then some other nicknames, just to kind of give you some more examples. California, and this is just for general knowledge, it's also known as the Sunshine State. It's known as Cali for short. It's known as the Golden State because of the Golden Gate Bridge, as well as because of the gold rush. There's the term cowboy, which you probably heard, which refers to people working on a ranch in the middle or western United States. It could also mean an independent person, like that guy is a real cowboy, meaning he's doing what he wants to do. He's very independent. He's a cowboy. And then the city of Chicago is also known as the Windy City because it's very windy because of the winds that come off of Lake Michigan. And then there's also nicknames where names are shortened for like the word doctor, we might call him Doc, or for Robert, we might call him Rob. So those are just some other nicknames. Okay. And then there was also a phrase in the story called, or it said, striking it rich. Another way to say it is strike it rich, or past tense, struck it rich. And when you strike it rich, you're acquiring a lot of money or something of great value. And usually it's like winning something. So, or you could have earned it as well. But using a sentence, the company was hoping to strike it rich by offering the new technology. Or past tense, he struck it rich when he found an old gold coin on the beach. So maybe he's telling the story afterwards. He struck it rich, which is past tense. And then many people dream of striking it rich by winning the lottery. So you have striking it rich, strike it rich, and struck it rich, which is past tense. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and I'd look forward to having you guys again. So please, by all means, please like and subscribe if you like the content. And I'd also like to hear some feedback if you can offer some comments, maybe some things that you liked, or maybe some things that you'd like to see on future videos. So thank you very much for your time.